World War II was one of the most brutal conflicts in human history, with some pretty evil deeds being done by both sides. So today we're going to be counting down 10 facts about World War II that will shock you. Number 10, the forgotten soldiers of World War II. Many people forget that during World War II, there were more soldiers fighting who weren't from Europe or the USA. In fact, it's estimated that nearly half of all soldiers fighting in World War II were part of the British Empire Army. This included troops from Africa, Asia, and Oceania. The British East African Campaign is a prime example. It was fought between British, Indian, and German colonial troops, and ultimately the British won because they had more soldiers, not necessarily because they were better trained. Number 9, the first atomic bombs. Most people know that the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan at the end of World War II. But did you know that Nazi Germany was actually the first to build an atomic bomb? In fact, they were so close to completing one that when the US dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, scientists in Germany were calculating how much plutonium they would need to make their own. Ultimately, after Hitler died and the war ended, the German nuclear project was abandoned. Number 8, animal soldiers. During World War II, animals played an important role in the war effort for many countries. For example, the U.S. Navy trained dolphins to serve as underwater demolition experts, clearing ships off the beaches of Normandy after D-Day. The Soviets used dogs in battle, often using them as sappers to sneak up on enemy forces and blow them up with explosives strapped to their backs. Hitler even had his own personal trained dog named Blondie, who was said to have been present at his bunker in Berlin during the final days of the war. Number 7, no more cigarettes. One of the biggest perks of being in the military throughout history has always been free cigarettes. This was no different during World War II. However, towards the end of the conflict, the government started to realize just how dangerous cigarettes could be. After all, studies had shown that smoking increased your risk of heart disease, lung cancer, and other health problems. So to protect the lives of their soldiers, the U.S. government implemented a ban on cigarettes, meaning no soldier could smoke in public places, and officers were forbidden from carrying cigarettes in their barracks. Of course, this didn't stop soldiers from smoking altogether. They just had to do it in secret. Number 6, deadly dolls. One of the most secretive weapons developed during World War II was Project W, a weaponized doll designed to be used by the US and UK as a way to gather intelligence on their enemies. These dolls were equipped with listening devices and cameras that could send back everything happening in the room where they were placed. While the plans were never fully realized due to technical difficulties, it's believed that several of these dolls made it into Nazi Germany. Number 5, secret weapons. During World War II, many countries developed secret weapons in an attempt to get the upper hand on their enemies. However, very few were as bizarre as the American Dehomax. Developed by the U.S. military, the Dehomax was essentially a portable hole-in-one. Essentially, it was a hollow drill bit attached to a harpoon gun which would be fired into the ground. Then once it hit a target, such as a tank, it would explode. The only problem was that it didn't work properly and sometimes exploded too early, killing the soldiers operating it. As such, the plan was scrapped, and the remaining Dehomaxes were repurposed as mines instead. 4, the Lost City. During World War II, entire cities could be leveled in a single day, thanks to new technologies like the atomic bomb and heavy bombing runs. This was never more apparent than in the Japanese city of Nagasaki. When the US dropped the second atomic bomb on Japan during World War II, it wiped out 70% of the city, killing over 80,000 people. However, right after the bombing, the city wasn't completely destroyed. There were still buildings standing and people alive. But within weeks, the survivors were forced to leave the city to make room for the cleanup process. To this day, Nagasaki remains a ghost town. 3, Soviet spies. During World War II, espionage played a major role in the Allied victory. And no spy was more famous than the Soviet spy Richard Sorge. Operating in Japan, Sorge provided the Soviets with information that helped them predict the Japanese attack on Manchuria, the Soviet-Finnish Winter War, and even the German invasion of the Soviet Union. Sorge was eventually caught and executed by the Japanese, but not before doing significant damage to the Japanese war effort. 2, radioactive sweets. When World War II began, there was no such thing as nuclear power. The idea of splitting the atom was still years away. However, near the end of the conflict, things would change dramatically. In September of 1945, the US dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. 3 days later, another bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, These bombs killed thousands and ushered in the nuclear age. But what's really crazy is that after the bombings, children were found wandering around Nagasaki with glowing candy in their hands. See, the bombs left behind a radioactive cloud of particles that fell to the ground, contaminating everything it touched. And sweets like Lifesavers and Skittles were among the items found with the highest levels of radiation. Gnome 1. The Spy Who Loved a Soldier. During World War II, love could conquer all. At least that was the case for Virginia Hall, an American spy who worked undercover in France. Hall was known as the most dangerous of all Allied spies by the Gestapo, and she managed to evade capture for most of the war. That was until she fell in love with a French resistance fighter named Paul Marc. Unfortunately for Hall, her cover was blown and she was captured by the Nazis. They took her to a small village where she was held prisoner. But soon after, Marc snuck into her jail cell and the two escaped together. However, they were eventually recaptured and sent to different camps. Hall was sent to Ravensbrück, a notorious women's concentration camp, while Marc was taken to Dachau. Hall survived the war and was liberated in 1945, while Marc was executed by the Nazis just a year earlier. That's all for this video, but if you enjoyed this one, be sure to check out our other videos as well, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos.